Hello, I am 15 Alpha Alpha Model K. I will be your tour guide today. Please follow me, and please try not to touch too much until told to. The robot speaking turned around and headed down the hallway. The speakers on its back were facing a plethora of children and a few adults, which were their guardians for the day. What you see around you is the inside of a human's ship. If we are able to translate their words correctly, it is called the Misfortune's Son. Everyone chuckles at this, yet he continues. This ship was used by humans after the reptilian Hith were forced off the human home planet after invasion. After which, from what remains of the records, the humans built the Prodigy class of battleships like this one. They reigned supreme in the universe, as their hull is more than 3 meters thick, and the weapons outclassed all weapons at the time, and at sometimes what is currently available. Note, we have not been able to activate the engines, yet they still power the lights, as you can see, the doors as we walk through them, and the life support systems. No one has successfully breached the engines without activating a very powerful self-defense system. However, we control the rest of the ship, so there is absolutely no danger. The android paused for a second, as the adults had already known this, but the young ones were suddenly paying attention, realizing they had heard of humans, but this would actually be the first time inside a human ship. They told that's where they were going, but most of them didn't understand it. They looked and the walls were fairly tall. They were quite wide. Yet as they walked, it seems like every single door knew where they were. It would open and close as need be. This was confusing to many of them because they heard that humans used to be a very, very warlike race. The android continued. After multiple wars, first with the Hith, then with the aquatic Snicky, then with the avian Bakete, and finally, the mammalian Okechode. The human defense lines were finally breached with the last one, and the humans' whole planet Earth ended up being slagged. But not fully, not as you had been told. They did not use weapons you would think would simply cook the Earth, as that wouldn't work with the humans' defenses. What they did was something the humans showed. They dropped many very strong pieces of metal on, strategically placed and meant to explode inside not only the atmosphere but inside the planet. The result of this was that the human fault lines, as they called them, started to separate, burst, and then slam back together. Volcanoes of all sizes were squeezed to the point where they exploded, or they were breached and simply blasted all sorts of very unpleasant materials across the surface. Along with that, the resulting tsunamis from underwater volcanoes, along with the massive magnetic and gravimetric issues that were caused, along with that, they did cause a solar burst, and this all made the humans' planet uninhabitable for at least 3 centuries. After the bombardment, the Okechode immediately went dark, and you can actually still see the debris field around the planet itself and the field from the counterattack as you pass through the Sol sector. Due to all the debris, Earth is actually a no-fly zone, restricted due to the danger not only from the gravimetric pull, but also the shrapnel that is simply floating through the atmosphere, as any ship approaching would be too badly damaged to actually leave and be forced to land on not only a death world, as it was once called, no, it was elevated to a hell world. It is believed that ships like this one were used to wipe out the Okechode 12 human days after the attack on their home planet. The entire species. We can only speculate as we cannot access the main computer or its engines. Yet humans were known to always seek retaliation. This is very well noted. If they had ever, in fact, found out that it was the other 3 species that could not actually attack humans and survive, that had convinced the Okechode to attack, it is believed that the humans would not have stopped at one species and taking them all on. I'm sure most of you understand the ramifications of something like that. At this point, the android actually stopped and turned to look at them, even though the android itself didn't really have a head. It wasn't there. In place where a neck should be was actually just his designation number. This it used to try and hammer the point home. Then it turned back, and the speakers came to life again. It is noted after the destruction of the OK Chode, the humans disappeared. 161 human years after the OK Chode had been completely exterminated, the first of these ships was found adrift in space. Thanks to automated systems, as you can see, the ships are in fantastic condition. Also, as you can see, there's a multitude of repair drones that scurry around the ship. This is when the android actually reached up with one of its arms and scratched the side ever so slightly. This caused several drones to come out of their little hiding spaces and scurry across the walls, across the ceiling, across the floor, everywhere to repair the one small damaged system. They were incredibly quick and extremely fast at what they did, making it so the slight damage just wasn't there anymore. The android continued. As you can see, there are a multitude of repair drones that scurry around the ship. Please do not be alarmed, as they may be shaped like the insect horde. I can assure you that they are not organic, and they will not attack unless you attack them. They only maintain this ship, and that seems to be their only function. They walk a little further along as the android explains a few more small items that they think humans may or may not have done, and eventually he stops in front of a very large set of doors. This is as close to one of their main turrets as we can get. The walls are incredibly dense, and any attempt to get inside will get you swarmed by the repair drones we saw earlier. At that point, I can assure you that things will not go your way, as the drones will no longer be friendly. They will protect the ship. Feel free, though, to check the door and take some photographs, some video at your leisure. We will wait until you are ready. At this point, many of the children pulled out their devices and started snapping several quick images or taking video explaining what was going on their own version of social media. Once they were done, they continued on to the next area. They ended up in a large area with a bunch of tables and chairs. The android spoke. This we believe to be what the humans call a Galley, a place of socializing and also to consume nutrients. Several items have been taken for examination, and it turns out that the humans consume high amounts of things like capsaicin, hydrogen chloride, and other materials at levels far exceeding safe levels for any species in this room. It is actually at such a high level that even possessing these items is considered a crime due to potential biological and biohazard risks. So, if you choose to pick up any items to examine it, please make sure you return it, as long as it is sealed, it is completely harmless. However, if you do end up finding a container that is broken, please inform me immediately. At this point, the android seemed to simply shut down and wait for the kids to use up their curiosity. They went out behind, they checked out utensils, they pulled things out of drawers. They're simply confused at why they would need such sharp implements. They saw the galley just full of all the tables and chairs. Many of them knocked the tables and chairs over, only to make sure that the drones would come in and fix them. Yet others went back in the storage area and were absolutely amazed at the amount of provisions that were just sitting there. Some wrapped in a strange type of polymer, others in metal, but it just sat there. Many of them tried to use their own translation circuits inside their devices to read what was there, but they only got words they couldn't understand. Beets. What's a beet? Peas. What's a peas? Carrots. What is a carrots anyway? They didn't know what was going on, but they got what they wanted and eventually went back to the robot and said, okay, we're ready to go. They continued on to the next section, and they walked into an area that many of them were just amazed at what they saw. Many control stations all the way around. And the android simply stopped and waited for everyone to get in before he spoke. This is the human bridge. Even by today's standards, it is extremely practical and efficient. From what we have been able to examine, each station has its own function, yet each station can be non-functional and the ship can still run. We have not figured out how they do that. Though experimentation, many of our own species have actually adopted similar designs, yet for some reasons unknown to us, they have not been able to duplicate the human's efficiency in combat, even though they triple, quadruple, and quintuple the efficiency in their own vessels. At this point, feel free to move around and examine all the systems as they are all offline. The robot once again freezes as the children move around, examining all the consoles, trying to sit awkwardly in the chairs that are clearly not designed for their physiology, and pretending to be the human crew, typical things that humans do. A female came up, said, "Excuse me, tour guide, but I need to clarify a few things." Immediately the robot turned and quote-unquote looked at her. "I am here to assist you. Please state your inquiry." "Earth was destroyed approximately 300 years ago?" Android thinks for a moment, then says, 3.8 million years ago, to be precise. The female then asks, "That would mean that Earth is able to support life again, correct?" The robot pauses for a second as it runs into its history, and then speaks. "That is unconfirmed due to the debris field, meaning we cannot actually land on the surface of the planet. However, the images taken recently have shown significant recovery." The robot walks over and plugs itself into the large monitor, which is one of the few systems they got to operate. An image of before and after of the slagged Earth is shown. As you can clearly see, the continents are almost unrecognizable from the previous placement. However, now that the skies have cleared themselves of debris, the flora has actually returned to the planet. They all look at the image, and it shows that Earth's continents are almost completely changed. What's there, sticking out of the blue Earth, is green, covering almost all of it, right next to the very, very bright blue oceans. As they examine everything for a minute, several of the consoles begin to light up, scaring the shit out of the children as they begin to back away, running to the teachers. They all begin to ask the robot what's going on. The robot simply states, "Unknown." The female in charge of the group begins screaming about how they need to leave the ship. As they open the door and walk hastily towards the exit, they see something. At first they hear it, which makes them stop. They don't know what it is. They hear clunking, hitting on the actual deck. The hell is that? It's rumbling, it's coming their way. The group stops dead as large bipeds run right down the hallway, most of them not even stopping to look at them. As they run past, everyone looks and they can see that each of these things are wearing similar garments, yet some have longer hair, more hair, and others don't seem to have any hair at all. This is weird. The group pushes themselves to the side of the walls. They see the bipeds enter the bridge and start speaking loudly in a language none of them can understand at first. As they stood there, another human approached. This one seems to be holding a device and wearing something that covered over his eyes. It's two forward-facing eyes that scared everyone. It seemed to hold up this small device as though it was checking to see who or what was in the hallway. It was around that point that another one came up, one that had strange silver fur on it. It walked up towards the children, stopped next to the one holding the device, and they seemed to whisper to each other in hushed tones about what was going on, yet no one could understand. They could see that the robot was going through some sort of process. It was though it was trying to figure out the language, and suddenly it spoke. "May we help you?" That was it. That's all it said, and this immediately got the two bipeds' attention. They looked at it, and then simply reached over and touched a strange device on their arm. It started to scan everything around them, and then they spoke. Are you the one in charge? It stated. I am a tour guide. I was giving them a tour of the museum ship known as the museum ship. What do you mean museum ship? What the hell happened while we were out? I don't know, sir, but you might want to check this out. The older one leaned over and looked at the device. Then he moved his head closer, and his eyes got really wide. Oh, jeez, he said. He simply looked over and said, So, who's in charge? One of the females slowly raised two of her hands over to her side to indicate it was her. Ma'am, bring those kids this way. He started to leave, and she froze. She didn't know what to do. Should she listen? Should she run for it? Does she just protect the children? What does she do? The other one simply spoke, Ma'am, please follow him this way. They followed as more and more bipeds seemed to show up. Where the hell did they come from, they all thought. This is impossible. These can't be. Could it possibly be? And then finally, one of the kids turned to the robot and said, Excuse me, 1-5, are these humans? Affirmative, but humans are extinct. Still attempting to compute. It, I, uh, it, it, The robot just continued to follow everybody as they entered into an area that seemed to be restricted. It was off limits. They went inside and they saw several beds and many, many different devices. They didn't know what was going on. They simply turned to the females in charge. Ladies, if you could, please place the children on these immediately, quick. We do not have a lot of time. With that, they looked over and waited until the one who had the device over his eyes simply reached up, grabbed one of the kids, who screamed a little bit, until he was placed down. And then another device encapsulated him, all except the head. Another device slowly came up from the back and went over the head and held it in place. The kid looked scared. With this, several other humans came in and did the same thing and put these kids on these beds. What the hell was going on? They started going through. They could hear the machines humming. They didn't know what to do. They were scared. These humans, they're big. They look strong. They can see the bulging of muscles coming through their uniforms. It was just strange. No wonder they're so dangerous. Look at them. Look how quickly they operate. Look how fast they move for their size. And they're so strong. They're picking everyone up. Eventually, each of the kids is placed on one of the beds, and then they can hear the devices humming, different frequencies of humming. Many of them started to fall asleep, dozing off, and the females started to get anxious. Ma'am, don't worry, the older human said. We're just taking care of them. Relax, calm, deep, take a breath or something, deep breaths. He wasn't really helping it with his stern expression. Yet many of them realized that if they wanted these kids dead, they'd be dead already. But what are they doing? It's not like they could do anything worse to the kids after all. Eventually, the pods that they were put in seemed to retract, open up, and the kids were motioned to just simply hop off. Many of the kids got off saying how they felt wonderful. They haven't felt this good ever. They started moving around as kids do, even more amazed at what was going on. With this and the last one coming out, the one with the device on his head simply raised it up, and the old one said, So, Doc, are they good to go? Yes, sir. Good. The old man, who turned out to be the captain, walked over towards the android. He said, At this point, he read the numbers off the front. It was translated through his eye. If you looked close, you could actually see the synthetic eye going through its translation circuit, trying to figure out. So, Isaac, robot Isaac. Yes. I need you to do something for me. Yes, I can, if it's within my power, service. Hey. The captain started shaking him. Hey, focus. It's real simple. It's within your wheelhouse. You can do this. Yes. What is your necessity? Simple. Take the women, take these kids, and get the hell off my ship. As they left the infirmary, everybody was pretty much in shock as they headed back towards the cargo bay. They would have not stopped the entire way, but they realized that the engine doors were open. As they passed by, they looked in and received a shock. Rows upon rows, levels upon levels of pods, many of them already open, others that were opening with humans climbing out of them. The sight seemed to terrify everyone, and they hurried up to make it their way out of the area and into the cargo bay. With that, the robot very quickly led all of them to the cargo hold. The cargo hold was surprisingly closed. It was open when they came in. It seemed as though they were waiting. They thought perhaps they would have to shoot their way out. The women were more concerned with the children. Were they going to be okay? Until they realized something. One of these children, a young boy, was suffering from Schnitzler's disease. His torso should be covered in lesions right now, but it's not. It's not at all. It's clean, completely clear. She looked over to a young female who should have had a strange, what the humans call cancer. She reached over and grabbed the appendage and squeezed where the cancer cells were amassing, but there wasn't anything there. The young girl realized what was going on and checked herself and just started screaming in glee. They didn't have time to worry about this because as the doors closed on their shuttle, within moments, the cargo bay doors opened automatically. The shuttle left without incident, but as soon as they left, the cargo hold shut once again right behind them. Many of the kids ran over to the side as they wanted to see the human ship from the outside. Sure enough, they could see the lights turning on. They saw the engine begin to give its telltale glow. What the hell? This was a museum ship. The humans, they shouldn't be alive. Yet, and their ship, it still operates. How? What? Before they knew it, it was gone. It just left. The most dangerous animal that ever crawled, walked, slithered, or flew in this entire universe. And they were just gone. The women asked the robot what the hell was going on. And the robot stated, "It seems as though every single museum ship has had similar instances, and yet there are no casualties. If anything, people are reporting positive events. This does not match up with historical reference." One of the females asked, "So where are they going anyway?" Calculating. As it turns out, all the ships are heading towards a single point. They are heading towards the human homeworld of Earth. Without skipping a beat, one of the young males piped up and said, "They're going home."